Welcome to today's audiobook podcast. In this episode, we'll explore the life of one of history's most notorious figures, Adolf Hitler. We'll look at his background, rise to power, and the impact he had on the world. This is based on Adolf Hitler, a biography, a deep dive into his life. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Early Life and Family Background. Adolf Hitler was born on 20th April 1889 in a small town called Braunau am Inn, which is in Austria-Hungary at the time, now part of Austria. His father, Alois Hitler, was a strict and sometimes harsh man, working as a customs official. His mother, Clara Hitler, was a kinder and more nurturing figure. Adolf was the fourth of 6 children, but only he and his sister Paula survived into adulthood. His early life was filled with tension and conflict, especially with his father, who had high expectations for his son to follow in his footsteps. But Adolf didn't want to follow his father's path. Instead, he dreamed of becoming an artist. Chapter 2: Struggles with Education and Family. Adolf Hitler was not a particularly good student. He struggled in school and had trouble focusing on his studies. His father was disappointed in him for not excelling, which led to even more tension at home. Adolf's dream was to attend an art academy, but his father insisted he pursue a more practical career. When Hitler was just 13, his father passed away unexpectedly. This left a deep impact on young Adolf, who now had no guidance from a father figure. He began to withdraw more into his own world, spending his time sketching and painting. After his father's death, Hitler tried to apply to the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, but he was rejected twice. He found himself in Vienna, living a poor, lonely life, struggling to make ends meet while also dealing with the pain of not being accepted into the art school. During this time, he developed a deep resentment towards the world and began forming his extreme political views. Chapter 3: World War I and the Soldier's Experience. In 1914, the world was plunged into World War I. Hitler, then 25 years old, joined the German army as a volunteer. He served in the infantry, mostly on the Western Front, where conditions were brutal. Hitler was injured twice during the war, once by a shell blast and another time by a gas attack, which left him temporarily blind. During these years, Hitler became deeply patriotic towards Germany. He developed a strong sense of nationalism and started to believe that Germany had been betrayed by its leaders in the aftermath of the war. The Treaty of Versailles, which officially ended the war, was a major turning point for Hitler, as he saw it as a humiliation for Germany and a betrayal of the soldiers who had fought. Chapter 4: Entering Politics and Joining the Nazi Party. After the war, Hitler returned to Munich, Germany, where he struggled to find a stable job. In 1919, he joined a small political group called the German Workers' Party, which would later be renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party or the Nazi Party. Hitler quickly rose through the ranks because of his powerful speaking abilities and his passion for the party's ideas. He became the party's main spokesperson, known for his fiery speeches and his ability to convince people that Germany's problems were caused by Jewish people, communists, and the Treaty of Versailles. Chapter 5: The Beer Hall Putsch and Imprisonment. In 1923, Hitler attempted to seize power in Germany in what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch. He and his followers tried to overthrow the Weimar government, but the coup failed. Hitler was arrested and sentenced to prison for his role in the failed rebellion. While in prison, Hitler wrote his infamous book Mein Kampf, which translates to My Struggle. In this book, he laid out his vision for Germany's future, blaming Jews and other groups for Germany's problems and calling for their removal. This book would later become the blueprint for the policies of the Nazi regime. Chapter 6: Rise to Power. After his release from prison, Hitler worked to rebuild the Nazi Party. Germany was facing a massive economic crisis during the Great Depression, and Hitler took advantage of the public's anger and frustration by promising them a better future. He blamed Jews and communists for the country's suffering, and his message resonated with many people who were struggling. In 1933, after years of political maneuvering, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Once in power, he moved quickly to eliminate political opposition and solidify his control over the country. He passed laws that gave him almost total power and began the systematic persecution of Jews and other minority groups. Chapter 7: The Holocaust and Expansionist Policies. Once Hitler had absolute power, he began implementing his vision for Germany. He believed in the superiority of the so-called Aryan race and wanted to create a pure, all-German state. This led to horrific actions, including the persecution and eventual extermination of 6 million Jews in what became known as the Holocaust. Hitler also had expansionist plans. He sought to conquer more territory for Germany, beginning with the invasion of Poland in 1939. This triggered the start of World War II. Over the next few years, Germany expanded its reach across Europe, occupying countries like France, the Netherlands, and parts of Russia. Chapter 8: The Downfall and Final Days. As the war continued, Germany began to suffer major defeats. The Allied forces, led by the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, started to push back. Hitler, refusing to surrender, remained in his underground bunker in Berlin as the Soviet army closed in. In April 1945, with the war lost and Germany on the verge of collapse, Adolf Hitler took his own life. He died by suicide on 30th April 1945 alongside his wife, Eva Braun. Shortly after, Germany officially surrendered and World War II came to an end. Conclusion: The legacy of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler's actions left a permanent scar on the world. His regime led to the deaths of millions of people, including 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. The war he started caused unimaginable suffering and loss. While Hitler's life was filled with hate, it also served as a lesson in how dangerous unchecked power, racism, and ideology can be. His rise to power and the devastation he caused serve as a reminder that we must always remain vigilant against hate and violence in all forms. Thank you for joining us today as we explored the life of Adolf Hitler. We hope this gave you a deeper understanding of how this dark chapter in history unfolded.